Okay, we're live.
Awesome. Just going to take a minute to allow it to pop up.
Hey guys, if you're joining us, we're just going to take a minute to share it to a few different platforms.
And make sure we're unmuted too.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't see that we're muted. I think that we're okay.
Okay, you think we're okay?
Yeah, I mean, it shows that we're good. We're good. We had a funny little incident a few lives ago, guys, where we spent the first, 10 minutes talking to ourselves. It was great. Good. Let me know when you've shared it.
Okay. I'm just sharing it right now. Okay. Awesome. I think it worked.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So glad to be here again. We are wanting to just take a minute to talk a little bit about a couple different offerings we have. The first one's on Thursday. It's a webinar and it's free. And then the second one is on Sunday this week. So it's a little bit deeper of an immersion. It's 3 hours with both of us together, sharing our genius and our gifts with you. And we just wanted to chat about how we show up as leaders during our own shadow work, which is perfect timing for both of us today. We're both kind of navigating our own. I'm going through a cleanse, and you can speak to kind of what you're going through, Sandy, if you'd like to.
My own emotional, energetic shadow alchemy that I'm always in, various stages of process with, depending on the day.
Yeah.
Working with the layers.
Mm-hmm. But it's so perfect because we both showed up, like we're both in it. And that actually is pretty potent for our topic, is how do we show up as leaders? And I think the first step is just showing up. It's not hiding. That's what's coming up for me right now, is that we show up, and we show up in all of our realness and authenticity. And yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Would you, I always feel like it's always nice to take just a few minutes to drop in and land.
Sure. Yeah.
Wait, are you open?
Oh, definitely. Yes.
Yeah, and this is kind of part of it. I think Jess and I are both in our various stages of, crunchiness right now for different reasons. I think that we've all been processing a lot individually and collectively as a people right now. And when there's so much going down our proverbial tunnel all the time, it's hard to know what's ours, what's existing in the external reality, and how do we actually come back to our own sense of, center, and our own sense of energetic sovereignty, and what does it feel like to be anchored in our own, the ground of awareness, and take up space, energetic and also physical and psychic space in our own field at the same time, so that we can show up as leaders, at the same time. So I always love to start with a little bit of a grounding and kind of body awareness, which helps me to kind of reorient towards my own, sense of what's happening in my arising experience, so that I can actually show up in greater intimacy with you and with all of you that are watching right now and might be watching later. So I just want to invite anyone that's watching right now to just notice what it's like to turn inwards for a moment, and allowing your gaze to soften and your eyes to even flutter shut if that feels comfortable for you. And just noticing what it's like to orient towards your breath without needing to do anything to fix or change your experience. Noticing what it's like to be here with yourself in this here and now moment. Acknowledging any thoughts that might be at the periphery of your consciousness, feelings or emotional layers that might be present, and physical sensations that might be here right now. And just seeing what it's like for a few moments to welcome all of yourself here without needing to fix or change anything in your experience. Connecting with a sense of inner home through the art and practice and of inviting all that's here to be present. And allowing whatever is arising to be welcome and okay. There's nothing bad or wrong or even good about the experience you're having. It's just the experience you're having. And then in your own space and time, allowing yourself to come back into intimacy with this present here and now moment and just noticing how that was for you.
Well, for me, it was very good. Yeah, I was very in my head today. It was interesting. I was noticing a lot of, yeah. This is so very, thank you. Thank you for listening to that intuition to kind of drop us in.
Yeah, it's for me, part of my leadership is obviously the first part is showing up, and the second part is attuning to what's needed in the moment, and also trusting ourselves enough to lean into whatever that impulse is, even if it doesn't make sense logically. uh, and, for me, when I'm moving through my own depths of shadow work, it's typical for me to be in avoidance of maybe moving towards my experience with more presence and more awareness, because I'm working with different levels and layers of discomfort. So there's a natural tendency to not want to be with my experience on that level, and to want to hide or insulate, or cut off, from, sensation or intensity. And that's definitely been a natural pattern of mine that I've had to work really hard for over many years to unwind, at the same time, so that I can actually show up in integrity. Because as leaders, we're, and I don't want to speak for like the whole of leadership, but this is something that I personally value in terms of leadership. Like, I trust someone as a leader if they're able to show up in congruence and integrity, and they're able to honor exactly where they are. And they're not in avoidance or hiding, at least not that they're aware of any aspect of their experience, but they're creating a deeper well permission to invite it all to be here at the same time. And that actually creates a greater degree of trustability, not only for someone that I'm wanting to work or collaborate with, but for anyone that I'm friends with or getting into an intimate relationship with at the same time. That's like a baseline, right?
Yeah, I think that's important too, because the people that are potentially joining or listening to this or might be participating in our offerings are collaborating with other professionals or other healers or other light workers. And it's important to be able to own it. So like when I was dropping in your guided imagery just now, I was first thing that I wanted to do was open my eyes, because my stomach is hungry because I'm going to do a cleanse. So it's like my body aches. And I'm like, you're right. I didn't really want to be with that experience, but that's physical. But sometimes when we're just having a shadow day, we don't want to show up in similar ways. And so we just don't want to be present. But that's where the juice is. And I think that's part of leadership as well, is being willing to show up with others that can hold that space for us.
Definitely. Yeah, I would agree with that, just in the sense of the vulnerability that we have and the vulnerability and the courage we have in terms of leaning in, even when it does, feel uncomfortable. And I think as leaders and trailblazers, it's easy to put a lot of pressure on ourselves that we have to show up and perform or express ourselves in a very specific way. I at least put this pressure on myself. I want to feel like I'm put together and I'm articulate and I'm able to embody a level of coherence, and I'm able to invite respect and appreciation from other people. I want to be liked, and that's a part of my ego. I want to be liked, and I want other people to think that I know what I'm doing, even though the deeper that I get into the spiritual rabbit hole, the more that I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, but and the more that I don't feel like I don't know. But that's also part of the process of showing up as a leader. At the same time, for me, it's claiming when I don't know, what I'm doing. It's claiming when I'm leaning into a major unknown and being, vulnerable and transparent about that the same way. And I think there's this, and this is something that we're going to be talking about on Thursday during our free online masterclass that I hope that all of you will jump in on, because we're going to be diving into a lot more juicy stuff. But the way that shadow can actually inhibit us from seeing ourselves clearly and seeing our gifts clearly at the same time. And when we feel the call to step into leadership, part of that is being able to actually have a clear kind of lens of ourselves to a certain extent, and being willing to own our own worth and value and own the gifts that we have at the same time. Not necessarily from a space of I'm better than you, or because in the social media collective, I think that there's a lot of comparison that goes on in the coaching world, and mentoring, therapy, self-help in general. There's a lot of comparison, and it's a very hot industry, especially because there's so many people translating onto the online sector. So a lot of what we're going to be talking about on Thursday, and also during our deeper immersion on Sunday, is how do we show up in leadership and acknowledgement of our shadow pieces, but how do we also see ourselves clearly so that we can translate our gifts and have deep awareness of what our gifts are and have the confidence to articulate them, so the people that really need to receive our medicine can actually find us, at the same time, and not only feel heard and seen, but as we invite ourselves to see and hear ourselves clearly, that invites other people to do the same thing, in themselves at the same time. So it creates this beautiful translation point, I would say.
Yeah. I love that. And that kind of reminds me of, the light workers that are, or helpers, healers, whatever word you want to put to it, the ones that are wanting to step into leadership are really looking for tools to really look at their blind spots. Blind spots are a big part of this. And the thing about blind spots is you don't know what you don't know until somebody shows it to you. And we really need to be able to show up in these kinds of ways for each other, and to lovingly point it out unconditionally, and just bring awareness so that the right people can find us. Because I see us all as these anchors for other people to anchor into us. And so we've got to be fully in our light in order for the right people to find us, kind of like you were saying. So, yeah.
Yeah. And part of our light is inviting that full spectrum of our shadow online, and it's, I think that in my own process with this, I'm always kind of confronted with a certain level of opposition and resistance to welcoming everything that's in my, experience, at the same time. But, in integral theory, which some of you may follow, it's we must, in order to transcend, we must include, at the same time. So it's, I think that we're all seeking towards greater degrees of wholeness. And as leaders, we're trying to show up as advocates as wholeness, and, at the same time, I think that there are these very powerful practices that we can lean into, and lenses that we can hold that can help us to kind of integrate the whole of who we are on a daily basis, so that we can have the clarity to see ourselves clearly, so that others can see ourselves clearly, and invite that deeper level of seeing of each other. And that's really the practice, and creating. And I think Jess and I are both interested in cultivating communities and spaces where the leaders within each of us are fully seen and seeing each other at the same time, because that's how we continue to evolve and grow. And I think it's why, one of the main reasons that we're investing time and energy into facilitating awareness around this topic, because this is a very potent time where leaders are needing to actually step up into their leadership, because there is so much chaos and instability going on in our environment right now. And the more that we can kind of hold and anchor the ground of our own internal awareness and support each other in doing that, the more that ripples out into the collective space and transforms the whole of the field, right? So it's like, let's become like the resonance that anchors the whole of the consciousness, so that even if there's tremendous amounts of chaos and instability, we are still able to connect with that baseline, ground and anchor, and hold the field to a certain extent. Not that we're responsible for all of that, but playing our part and taking our role and responsibility and showing up and doing that to the best of our ability, without martyring ourselves or rescuing.
Yeah, and we'll be talking about all of that, all of the different ways that the shadow shows up, and all the different like archetypes of like the victim, the villain, the hero, all of that. It's funny. I just have to say, this is how my guides speak to me. When you said it's time to stand up, or you said step up, you said step it up. Right when you said step it up, my iWatch said time to stand up.
I love that. That's awesome.
So I know that sounds silly, but it's like, I feel like there's actually something there to unpack more, and maybe we could do today, or a little bit today, and then more on our webinar, because I think a lot of people that might be listening or interested in doing it are wondering what does that look like? What does like stepping it up actually look like? Like, we can talk about it, but what does it actually look like? And we can talk about all of that. I'd be interested to hear kind of like what your thoughts are on that. Of what is stepping it up into a leadership role, like into 3D, like what is that looking like?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's visibility has always been a huge thing, and I think for me, like, part of my shadow is like, I like to kind of like sit in the kind of repository of all the knowledge and like the practices that I've accumulated, and not share them, or being resistant to like doing lives, or it's always been about this like edge of like visibility for me, and the vulnerability of owning that like I have like knowledge, accumulated knowledge, or practices or insight that could be really helpful to other people. And I work with a lot of individuals that are stepping into that sort of orientation, where they recognize that they have a deeper calling within them. They feel like they have something that is very powerful and potent that needs to be shared, and yet there's this gap between where they feel they are right now and the confidence that they're yearning to cultivate in terms of being able to like really embody what they teach and being seen in the embodiment of what they teach. And like me hopping on a live with you and talking about these things is the practice for me. It can literally be that small. It doesn't necessarily have to be a live. It could be like posting like a sentence on Facebook. Like, we have all different like thresholds of being seen. We're all going to feel, I would say, different and have different comfort levels around visibility, So, I think it's this question of investigating, where is your edge? Where do you feel like you're not actually fully showing up and like sharing the gift or your intrinsic genius and like the brilliance that is yours and uniquely yours that you have to offer? And what's one small step that you could take even today to share that? If that's getting on a live, great. If it's posting something on Facebook, if it's submitting something to an online journal. And I mean, these are just examples of ways that I'm visible, but we're all going to have different ways of how we feel maybe most drawn to be visible at the same time. So I would say drop into that deeper inquiry of where is your edge around being visible and being seen, and what's one way that you could invite yourself to do that today.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, and as you were speaking, the words like emotions, like how we can actually own emotions as being a gift and a strength, because a lot of people that I think are drawn to us are highly sensitive and potentially have seen their emotions as being unstable, like that they're
Yeah.
afraid of the big emotions that they feel, but it's because it's what you think is the problem is actually the gift a lot of the times. But it's learning how to redefine it so that you can step into your leadership from an empowered space that you may have thought were problems, but are actually your greatest gifts. So I think that's maybe something to be unpacked as well.
Yeah, and I love that. It's kind of like when we step into a wider lens, we can begin to see a lot of the things that we feel most vulnerable about or are wounding is like the exact medicine that people like need to receive and hear. and I mean, I've been doing this for a little while now. I remember when I first started doing Facebook Lives that it's like I couldn't breathe, and I was like, oh, and I was like, I was tripping like all over my words. And I just felt like I couldn't even connect or stay in my body. You know, like I could speak in front of people live, but there was something about putting out my truth out into like the black hole that is like the social media, collective consciousness, and having no idea how people were going to respond to me at the same time. And I know that so many people struggle, with that, and talking about that, it's like talking about your greatest fear or what you feel vulnerable about or your relationship with being seen. There's so many people that relate to that. And I think that I'm always in awe of like when I finally do it, lean in and take a risk to share myself in that way, the type of response that I do get. And like the messages that I receive from other people, like, thank you so much for saying that, I like really need to hear that. And, and I think it's like what we're all craving on that deeper level too. It's, to be raw and real, to be unapologetic and uninhibited, and to be able to actually transform our own perception of our woundedness and our fallibility and our humanity to a certain extent, like celebrating the whole of what makes us human as opposed to the specific aspects that point to us being successful or being able to like hold our shit together and in the kind of like 3D reality at the same time. And even investigating what is your kind of relationship and perception with like success. What does it actually mean to you at the same time, and how can you begin challenging that on a daily basis, which is something that I think we can get into like more during our webinar, but also on our Sunday retreat at the same time.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah, well, we hope that this resonated with everybody, and we really want to go deeper with you on both days. If you can make it, that would be just wonderful. Our webinar is Thursday at 11 Mountain Time, and we'll post that in the links. And then we hope to also see you Sunday from 11 to 2 Mountain Time.
Yeah, we're going to be doing our Sunday immersion from 11 to 2. It's a $44 energetic investment. We're going to have a lot of time to do some like deep experiential exploration on Sunday, which will be really powerful. So we'll be going into meditation, group exercises, doing energy mastery techniques, kind of like really drop in and anchor into our own sense of wholeness, getting deeper clarity around our specific unique gifts and genius and how to articulate them, and what does like leadership individually mean to us, and how can we show up in that even more fully in our lives and the people that in the projects that we're of service to at the same time. So we'll post some links for both of our events. Our Thursday event is free, and then the Sunday event is the $44 energy investment as well. So if you feel called, we would love to collaborate, co-create, and play with you.
Definitely. Yes. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a nourishing day, and we will see you soon.
Bye.